Sometimes in the middle of a big project, it's helpful to do a small side project that is simple in scope, just to take your mind off the complexities of everything you're managing in the big project. That's what this McLeod refurbishment is gonna be. Now, I found the metal part of this tool in Los Padres National Forest on the Marble Peak Trail. I believe the handle burned in the Sobranos fire. Probably burned in some fire if it wasn't that one. And I bet it was a wildfire that took it out. So when you do trail work, you'll typically cache your tools in a secret location so you don't have to carry them in and out of the field. You do carry them out when you're done working on that trail though. However, if a fire rolls through, you're going to lose those tools. And that's probably what happened to this one. So I went ahead and cut out the with a grinder and then used a little punch to punch out the pin that was through the old handle. And for me, I figured out going into this project, I figured it would take about 1 hour. And to be honest, I was off by about a factor of 4. I have this pattern of underestimating how long it's going to take me to do something. And that's what happened here a little bit. So after we got that pin out, I went ahead and used the sander and some heavier grit sandpaper to start getting the rust off this thing. And then we got a drill attachment with a wire brush to get even more rust off, because my thought was get all the rust off so it will hold paint and then paint it. So step by step we get the rust off, working our way across every metal surface on this thing. And the teeth have a lot of different surfaces, and that's where the wire brush really comes in handy. Same with this weld where the handle is mounted to the plate there. We even did some wire brushing on the inside of this handle shaft. That way there's less rust there. And we're just trying to vacuum up in between, because this is getting rusty metal parts everywhere. After that, we get the grinder to put an edge on the outside cutting part of the McLeod. And then we got this shovel handle from Home Depot. My wife made the Home Depot run. Pop that in there. You saw us drill it out using the stock hole as the guide. And then we realized, okay, we're going to have to get the welder out, because this handle is not on as well as it could be on. And due to a cinematic error, I wasn't filming as I welded a thick bead of metal all around this handle. So once I realized my mistake, I turned the camera back on and just added some more metal so that you could see me do some welding on this. It's safe to say that this thing is ready for trail work. It's not going anywhere. Fun note, this hammer I'm using came from my grandfather. He's in another place now. He passed away a long time ago, but he was a welder and iron worker, and he fabricated this hammer in his shop, and now it hangs in my shop, and I'm using it and thinking of all the things he built with his welder in his time. And maybe someday my son will have that tool hanging in his shop and use it when I'm gone. Okay, now that we're done talking about multi-generational trail tool or shop tool use, because this McLeod could have been in the wilderness for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. It's got China stamped on it, so I don't think it's been that long. But anyway, let's get to painting this. When I was working with Betsy last, the McLeod she had was yellow, so that was the color of choice I went with on this one. And this is water-based Rust-Oleum. I went with water-based because it's easier to clean the brushes, although this brush I never actually cleaned. I just put it in a Ziploc bag in between coatings, and it's just a little sponge adapter or sponge applicator. So that's that. I tried to do as many coats as I would need to for the user not to see the metal underneath the tool. And I figured that would be like 2 coats, 3 coats max, but instead it probably turned into 6, 7, actually probably closer to 10 coats. But I was working on the van, and so I just put some coats of paint on, and my son helped me, and of course got paint on his clothes and my clothes, and it was just a bit of a bonding experience. Okay, so finally we got enough paint on this that it's starting to look like the leaves on a sunflower in late July after the summer sun has grown it tall. All right, here's our JB Weld epoxy, my favorite epoxy. It holds like 5,000 pounds and change per square inch, and we got a lot of square inches on this. After that, we realized our hole for our bolt was filled with epoxy, so we cleaned that out with a old bike spoke and re-drilled it a bit so that it was perfectly aligned. And then we went ahead and put an M5 riv nut in this. Again, I didn't scope this at the start of the project. I just started, and one thing led to another, and then we have the welder and the epoxy and the paint and the riv nut gun tool. And one could say that, well, this is just a really good refurbishment process. So we got our nut in, and then we put some of our thread locker on there. We went with the red thread Loctite on there so that this thread is never coming off unless you apply heat on it. But with the epoxy and the thread locker, it's never going to come off. And there's a little stub of a bolt sticking out, so we using a wedge as a shield, we went ahead and grinded that off and got some hot embers on the lens of the GoPro. Then we took some epoxy and we filled in this concavity that the riv nut tool made and just made it concave. So we just have this little bump on the outside of the tool so no water can seep in, no liquid can penetrate in, and it's just going to make the whole thing more solid. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side of this. So really, if you ever want to get this piece of metal off this piece of metal, you're going to have to use the grinder and the punch again. So, but the bolt is helping compress it from side to side. My thinking in smoothing this stuff out is just to make this as durable, clean, and easy to use in the field perpetually. I want this tool to have a long life. Okay, so we got our JB Weld on, and it is the next day. So we are going to paint over this JB Weld, and I got my helper again, and our helper is going to get more paint on his clothes and more paint on my clothes. And that's how it goes when you have a little helper, as it should go. Okay, so this is probably getting close to our 8th or 9th coat of paint, and that's okay, because after lunch, we're going to put another one on. And this thing's going to look like a yellow submarine, something right out of a Beatles song. Now that that part's done, we're going to use some P-cord. Well, actually, this is climbing cord, and I found this cord on a route somewhere in Indian Creek many years ago, and it was used as a throwaway anchor basically, and I took it off the metal and put other metal there so it wouldn't be trash anymore. And now it's gonna go on this handle end with a couple overhand knots to hold it in, just in case this shovel ever needs to be hauled up something, lowered down something, attached to something, or hung from something. And with a cord this thick, it should have more than enough strength to hold this very well. If I had a little more cord, I would have done a fisherman's knot on either side, but it looks good and I'm happy with it. Now that we're done painting, it's time for a final sharpening of our cutting edge of our McLeod. I really like a sharp cutting edge on a McLeod because if you're trying to clear vegetation, you can use this end a bit like a mattock and chop through like raspberries or roses or ivy and then rake them out with the teeth. So we're going to put a nice coat of oil on this when we're done, and that's about the only thing to protect it from rust. It's about the only thing you're not going to see in this refurbishment video. Other than that, this tool is good to go, and if you stick around on the channel, you'll get to see me use it doing some volunteer trail work. And if you come on a volunteer trail work trip with me, perhaps I'll let you use this long lost McLeod that has been found, refurbished, and ready to do more work to make the forest a little bit better for future visitors. In any case, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you around.